Welcome back to the Library of the League, where you can dig into the lore of Greyhawk. We have come to the last human migration I will cover, the often neglected Bakluni tribe that was, at one point in history, a large empire. Join me as we discover the migration of this human tribe. Just like in the previous videos, the text used is an adaptation of the one written down by Leonard Lakovka with some additions of Stephen Wilson. They derived it from the work of Gary Gygax and his World of Greyhawk, with additional material from Greyhawk Adventures and the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. I also want to thank Anna Meyer for her map-making art, and I've put a link to her website below the video. The Bakluni timekeeping works as follows. Take the Bakluni time and subtract 2659, and the result is the date in common years. For your convenience, I show both throughout the video. Right, let's jump into the history of the Bakluni. The Bakluni, just like all the other human tribes, have existed for thousands of years before evolving into nomadic tribes. But well over 1,000 years before their reckoning started, several nomad families of the northern central plains encountered the Suel Empire for the first time. At first the contact was merely trade. Herd animals, horses, cloth and pottery were exchanged for superior weapons and adornments of civilization. The peaceful trading arrangement changed somewhat when in 391 of their reckoning the first recorded slavery raid occurred. Suel forces captured an entire family of Bakluni and took them back to the Suel Empire to live in servitude. But the true turning point came some 200 years later when in 596 the Great Betrayal took place. A merchant gathering, comprised of 7 Bakluni nomadic merchant clans, and a group of Suel merchants took place. The Suel chief merchant Adiafer attacked the merchants, attempting to take their goods and enslave them. The Bakluni families drew their trains together and fought to the last person instead of surrendering. That the Great Betrayal wasn't a one-man's decision was shown 9 years after this incident, when Suel armies marched into the northern plains and claimed lordship over all the northern tribes. With the defeat of the nomads, the first Suel fortresses were constructed in the north, and for the next 600 years the Bakluni tribes were subjugated to the Suel Empire. The Bakluni, under one of their wandering chieftains, Ali ben Onar, unite in an effort to throw off the Suel yoke in 1115 of their reckoning. During this war, one of the items of binding was captured. The war ceased when the Bakluni threatened to use this item, and the Suel ceded a large portion of their northern territories back to the Bakluni. Both civilizations from now on live on a very uneasy peace, and the Bakluni re-established the kingdom. In 1932, a plague breaks out in the Bakluni lands. This is the first of many plagues that history books now call the Plague Years. Luckily, the monastic practices of the followers of Zuoken was widespread, and as a result, the plague losses were not nearly as great as what was found in the Suel lands south. Still, most Bakluni blamed the Suel and talked about cleansing the south. The opportunity would come 2.5 centuries later. Zunit al-Zol, the prince of House Zolax, was crowned emperor of the Suel peoples in 2157, and soon after the Bakluni withdrew their ambassador from the Suel Empire. Not even 20 years later, the Great War began, with Caliph Harran ben Ramif sending an army into the Salhout Pass. The 9,000-strong Bakluni army was slaughtered to a man. In the Bakluni court, the holy prophetess Devra of Istus had received a vision that the lands of the Suel would soon be washed pure as a desert. From now on, war would be continuous in their ancestral land, and at the same time, the Bakluni migration began. In 2194, both Bakluni and Suel began to go east of the Great Mountains to recruit humanoids to serve as mercenaries in their battles. Arish ben Alif, a wandering prophet, warns of the destruction of the Bakluni people. This did not sit well with the established prophets of Istus at the court. He was quickly declared an outlaw by the high priestess of Istus, and the Caliph Namesh bin Yamish ordered the arrest of Arish. He escaped the bounty hunters and soldiers and kept wandering the western edges of the Bakluni realm, where he convinced 6 families of the oncoming disaster. These families moved east into the northern part of the Flannae. Arish himself, however, returned to the Great Court in an attempt to convince the Caliph Talna bin Namesh to move eastward, but he was put to death by drowning. The Bakluni army began advancing in the northern provinces of the Suel Empire, which at that time was weakened by strife, and the Suel fell back before the Bakluni assault in 2238 of their reckoning. An apocalyptic event took place 3 years after taking province by province. Suel mages had gathered immense amounts of magical energies until they feared they would destroy themselves, and then unleashed it on the Bakluni kingdom. The infamous invoked devastation, as it would be called later in the history books, did not leave a single Bakluni city standing, and utterly destroyed the land. Exactly 1 hour before this event, the Bakluni goddess Ishtus warned her clerics of the impending doom, and they should gather at their most holy site, Tovach Baragu. Protected, the clerics, together with the most powerful mages of the realm, were able to retaliate only moments after the Suel attack. They decided to use the arcane powers of the Binders to unleash a rain of colorless fire upon the Suel. This vile rain of destruction exterminated the Suel's central empire. The remains of both expenditures of energy are now called the Sea of Dust and the Dry Steppes. The destruction of the Bakluni Caliphate was a fact. The Yamir family, together with 6 other families who had moved east, survived this apocalypse. 2 decades after the twin apocalyptic events happened, 4 of the 6 Bakluni families residing in the east elected to return to their homeland. The Kati family stopped just east of the Tusman Hills. The other families, Tujmir, Zaifa, and Egberi, push onwards and continue into the traditional Bakluni lands. The 2 remaining families, who remained in the north of the Flannae, became estranged from the cultures in the west. In 2970, a tribal group from the far west of Urik swept through the Bakluni lands. These nomadic horsemen called themselves the Painim, or as most Bakluni called them, the Horde. One of these clans, the Uili, moved further north and into the area between the Ulspru Mountains and the Barrier Peaks, establishing what is known as the Kingdom of Ul. Here ends our brief look into the migration of the Bakluni. If you want to know more about who the Bakluni are, what they look like, what culture they have and their general demeanor, I would like to invite you to watch that video in the playlist Races. Well guys, this was the 4th and final video on the human migrations in the Flannae. It has been a lot of work putting it all together, and I'm sure my timeline may slightly differ from yours, but I'm happy with my result. I've had great fun in making these and hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope to see you again in the league and happy gaming!